Good afternoon. Once again, if you are here for environmental protection, you are in the right place. As a few reminders, there is no eating or drinking in here in room 1. If you wish to testify, please go to the back to fill out a testimony slip. Thank you. And no one is to approach the dais.
Okay, everyone, I'm pleased to announce that I'm not late. I don't know how that works. I was just informed that there's some sort of tech thing going on and that we have to wait. And I'll take this opportunity to silence my phone. Who's taking pictures?
Recording in progress.
Microphone check, microphone check. Can we get a microphone check?
Okay, now I'm good.
Good afternoon and welcome to the New York City Council hearing of the Committee on Environmental Protection, Resiliency, and Waterfronts.
You gotta
At
write
this time,
everybody
can
down
everybody
so
please
nobody's
silence
here.
your cell phones? If you wish to testify, please go to the back of the room to fill out a testimony slip. At this time and going forward, no one is to approach the dais. I repeat, no one is to approach the dais. Chair, we are ready to begin.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. I'm Councilmember Jim Gennaro, Chair of the Committee on Environmental Protection, Resiliency, and Waterfronts. Today we'll be holding an oversight hearing on the city's efforts to maintain stormwater resiliency in a changing climate, as well as hearing Intro 403, sponsored by the Public Advocate, Jimani Williams, who graces us with his presence today. And his bill is in relation to the cleaning of catch basins and reporting on catch basins cleanup and maintenance. He has a statement, and I welcome his statement on the bill. Intro 1352, proposed by me in relation to the drainage location of certain building roofs. Intro 1395, sponsored by Councilmember Brooks Powers, in relation to requiring the Department of Environmental Protection to conduct a green climate screen pilot project. Intro 1397, sponsored by me, in relation to establishing a base flood elevation and resilient construction standards for 10-year rainfall flood risk areas. Everybody get that? It was like a whole statement there. And Reso 82, sponsored by me, supporting the mission and growth of the Climate Museum. According to the NPCC's fourth report, which was published in June of 2024, local sea levels are projected to rise between 6 inches and approximately 12 inches by the 2030s, 1 to 2 feet by the 2050s. I won't have to worry about that. And a little joke there, you know, I mean, a little death joke, okay. And 2 to 5.5 feet, 2 to 5.5 feet by 2100. High-end estimates for annual precipitation project an increase of up to 10% by the 2030s, 14%, not 13, not 15, 14% by the 2050s, and 30% by 2100. Our city is already struggling to address the current volumes of rainfall we are receiving, with 2 major storms this summer leading to widespread flooding, not only in our subway system, but also along the FDR in Manhattan and the Clearview Expressway in Queens, where flooding got so severe that people were forced to abandon their cars, and 2 individuals required rescue from a stranded vehicle. It is clear that there is much work to be done to prepare for a wetter future with more frequent and more intense rain events, which brings us to the legislation that we'll be hearing today. First on the docket is Intro 403, sponsored by the Public Advocate. Since he is joining us today, I will leave it to him to speak on his own bill. I already said that, but I just said it again. My introduction, 1352, which would require that roofs on certain buildings drain onto permeable surface instead of being routed directly to the sewer system. This would reduce the volume of water that our stormwater infrastructure needs to handle and increase opportunities for natural infiltration of rainwater into the ground. Intro 1395 would establish a green climate screen pilot program, increasing options for neighborhoods with high water tables. It's a certain kind for people who, it's a certain kind of stormwater adaptation that is critical in areas, or could be critical in areas that have high water tables, which, you know, can absorb a lot of stormwater. Yeah, so I like it. It's not my bill, but I like it. Where was I? Okay, the green climate screen program, increasing options for neighborhoods with, okay, here it is. Increasing options for neighborhoods with high water tables, where our current toolbox of green infrastructure interventions are less effective. This would be a new tool for those areas. Intro 1397 would require the Office of Long-Term Planning and Sustainability to indicate a base flood elevation level within the 10-year rainfall flood risk areas on the updated flood risk area map, and require that new or substantially altered buildings in 10-year rainfall flood risk areas be built to the standards that apply to some federal special flood areas. Finally, we will also be hearing Reso 82, which supports the mission and growth of the Climate Museum. We kind of said that, but we're doing it. Okay. At this hearing, I'm looking forward to public feedback on the legislation on the docket today so that we can incorporate your feedback and ensure that these bills are the best and most effective versions of themselves. I would like to thank the committee staff, legislative councils Natasha Bynum right here, and Ciara Townsend right there. Policy analyst Ricky Chawla, financial analyst Tanvir Singh, as well as my legislative director Josh Gachette for all their hard work. I will recognize the following council members who would join us. A list will appear in my hand, and I will read from it. Joined by council members Holden, Nurse, and Public Advocate Jumani Williams. And I'll now pass it along to the Public Advocate. Before I do that, you know, like once he speaks, he's very dynamic, and like everyone, like, you know, is very enthralled by what he says. But in the meantime, I have a little show and tell thing here, just to indulge, and the Public Advocate is going to get a kick out of this. I went to my 50th high school reunion over the weekend, and they give you these little things so you can tell who you're talking to. So this is what I looked like when I was 17, and yeah, you know, so like, there you have it. What's that?
No change at all.
Yeah, nothing, no change, yeah. And I'm wearing my class ring, which still fits me. Take that, members of the class 75. So there you go. You know, anybody wants to make a copy of this, I'll sign them. But for now, I want to get everyone into a good mood for the minister of good moods, you know, the one who makes us all happy as he advocates for us relentlessly. It is my great honor to introduce the Public Advocate, who will speak on his bill, after which I'll turn it over to Committee Counsel to give the affirmation to the witnesses. Public Advocate, you are recognized. It's all yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and congratulations on your...
I'm making it. I know. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. First, most important, let's go Knicks. It's their first game. Got to figure out if I'm watching that, the debate. It's going to be a very hard decision. We'll figure it out. Thank you for the administration being here. I just want to shout out Deputy Commissioner Michael Farnan, because my Deputy Public Advocate for Infrastructure and Environment, Kashif Hussain, says you hired him back in 2004 when he worked for the DEP. So thank you for that. And you helped him become the great Deputy Public Advocate he is now. With that, good afternoon again. My name is Jamani Williams, and I'm the public advocate for the City of New York. Thank you very much to Chair Gennaro and the members of the Committee on Environmental Protection for holding this hearing, hearing my bill, and allowing me an opportunity to provide a statement. The last several years have demonstrated just how severe the effects of the climate crisis will be, and already are, for our city. Hurricane Ida took the lives of 13 New Yorkers in 2021. Flooding from the remnants of Tropical Storm Ophelia caused millions of dollars worth of damage in 2023, and Hurricane Erin took one person's life off the coast of Long Island just this past summer. The city has done a lot in recent years to prepare for our communities and our infrastructure for the increasing frequency of severe storms, but we can and still should do more. I don't think many people realize we actually, in 2020, are in a new climate now. So as people are denying climate change while it's actually happening is crazy work. But catch basins are a key component of New York City's stormwater resilience infrastructure that require frequent attention and upkeep. I sponsored and, with the support of my former council colleagues, passed a bill that became Local Law 48 of 2015. This law required the city's Department of Environmental Protection to clear every catch basin in the city each year and to submit semi-annual reports on catch basin complaints and cleanings. Unfortunately, Local Law 48 sunset in 2019, and we've not yet passed legislation extending it. My legislation being heard today, Introduction 403, would ensure DEP submits the previously required reports and fixes catch basins within 5 days of inspection or receipt of a complaint. I applaud DEP for keeping the average catch basin clearing time under this threshold since 2020, and for the catch basin data that they have been reporting. Even so, a 5-day clearing requirement is needed to ensure this trend continues. More robust data reporting requirements will allow government agencies and offices to improve their storm resiliency planning. It will also allow the city to better identify and address any geographic or socioeconomic inequities that may exist in our catch basin clearing efforts. I urge the committee and my council to, after they hear this, please pass and show 403. We can't afford to go another 5 years without catch basin data and clearing requirements. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Public Advocate. I hope that we're successful on the second go-around. This was a success when you first passed it, then it sunsets, and hoping for a sunrise here. And so, okay, I recognize everybody. And then, now we're up to the point where I turn it over to the committee counsel to give the affirmation to the witnesses.
Please raise your right hand. You can all do it at the same time. Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth before this committee and to respond honestly to council member questions? Great, thank you. When you do respond, please just state your name and title for the record.
Okay, it's up to the administration, the order of which they want to testify. I have the very convenient and very gracious large type font of DEP's testimony. Buildings, I'll have to squint. I'm in the middle of having a bunch of eye surgery, so that they're not even giving me reading glasses yet, and I have to finish all that. Whatever agency wishes to go first, I'm sure you've worked that out. Please state your name for the record and proceed with your good testimony.
Hi, good afternoon, Chairman and members of the committee. I'm Beth DeFalco, Deputy Commissioner. for
Sure,
Public
if you could
Affairs.
speak right into the microphone like I'm doing. Yep,
Is that any better?
yeah.
Okay. Good afternoon, Chairman and members of the committee and Public Advocate. I'm Beth DeFalco, Deputy Commissioner for Public Affairs of the Department of Environmental Protection. First of all, I know that our commissioner was really looking forward to being here today. Unfortunately, he got sick last night and couldn't make it, but up until this morning planned to. I'm assuming he's telling the truth since his wife is a doctor.
Yeah, I'm sure that he is. I will send him a text message after the hearing to, wish him a speedy recovery. He's a great guy.
I'll be reading our testimony this morning, but I'm also joined by several of our top experts, including Mike Farnan, Acting Deputy Commissioner, who leads our Bureau of
I would just say that as you identify people, if they could just signal to me who they are. So who's the person you just mentioned?
So Acting Deputy Commissioner Mike Farnan, who leads our Bureau of Water and Sewer Operations. Assistant Commissioner Wendy Sperduto, our Chief Engineer who oversees engineering and capital planning, and Assistant Commissioner Melissa Enoch, who oversees green infrastructure and sustainability. We appreciate the opportunity to speak about stormwater resilience and legislation before you today. When the Commissioner testified on flooding and stormwater infrastructure in 2024, he outlined 5 realities, which have shaped everything that DEP has done since. 1, we're now living through climate impacts that scientists have warned us about. Some impacts will continue to surprise us because climate change brings more extremes and less predictability. 3, our infrastructure can't evolve as quickly as the climate is changing. Everyone has a role to play. DEP can't solve flooding and resiliency challenges alone. And finally, resilience comes with a cost, paid for through our water rates, so we must invest wisely and make every dollar count. 3 years later, all 5 lessons have proven true. We've made progress, but the pace of climate change means that we can't slow down. Every New Yorker has been feeling the effects of climate change. In 2020, the U.S. National Climate Assessment officially moved New York City from a coastal temperate to a humid subtropical climate zone. So essentially, we've moved 500 miles south without ever leaving home. That means hotter summers, more intense storms, and heavier rainfall. We've recently experienced some of the most extreme rainfall events in our city's history. The 4 storms with the highest hourly rainfall rates, so the highest intensity per hour, at Central Park in the last 50 years have all occurred since 2021. Just to go through them. September 1st, Hurricane Ida, 3.4 inches an hour. July 14th, 2025, 2.08 inches an hour. September 29th, 23, 1.87 inches, and August 21st of 2021, this is Hurricane Henri, 1.84 inches. These intense rain events strain the capability of our sewers, which were not designed to manage this sort of inundation. Until 2022, DEP's standard was to design infrastructure to what's known as the 5-year storm. But that storm was based on historical data. That meant that projects that were designed to handle, at first, 1.75 inches of rain, and more recently, 1.85 inches per hour. Prior to 1980, when DEP was formed, each borough established its own stormwater standard, and in some cases allowed developers to build without installing stormwater systems. Given that most of our infrastructure is more than 50 years old, large parts of Brooklyn and Queens have smaller sewers, which is contributing to more frequent flooding events. Some parts of the city, mostly on Staten Island and Southeast Queens, are now just beginning to get storm sewers. In addition to being more intense, the storms that we experience now have different patterns than the one that we're accustomed to. Traditionally, the most extreme storm we would routinely face was a nor'easter. Nor'easters are large, so they'd be predictable, and they'd cover the whole city more or less uniformly. Our new storms are more tropical in nature. They're hyper-local, hyper-intense, of very short duration, and unfortunately, very hard to predict. Taking office soon after Hurricane Ida, this administration made one of its top priorities addressing stormwater resilience. The initiative has required several significant changes in how DEP approaches planning work. The first was to look ahead instead of looking back. Since we are building infrastructure for the next 50 years, not the last 50, we have to plan for climate of the future, not the climate of the past. As a result, we now use the New York Panel on Climate Change's 5-year storm as expected in 2080 as our design standard. This standard is 2.15 inches per hour, which equates roughly to the historical, or what's known as a 10-year storm standard. The second was to create our own internal infrastructure to undertake smart stormwater planning. DEP built a digital model, essentially a digital twin, of the sewer system to help pinpoint the most impactful interventions. Flooding may occur at one location, but the cause of that flooding may be upstream or downstream. The model now allows us to understand that. Third, teams used the model to identify the locations that will experience the most impactful flooding in a 2.15-inch storm. Based on that information, we've created a prioritized list of 86 locations across the city that have the highest need. This work is laid out in the 2024 stormwater analysis, which is available on our website. Finally, DEP has integrated planning across green and gray infrastructure. At each of these locations, we're looking at all potential solutions on equal footing. Not only does this terrain, soil, and existing infrastructure in each location shape what is possible, but different solutions may take more or less time to construct. DEP is developing a citywide stormwater resilience strategy built on what's in Plan YC. A big step forward has been breaking down silos between our green infrastructure and our gray infrastructure teams. Historically, they worked separately, one focused on rain gardens and permeable surfaces, the other on sewer and drainage pipes. Now they're working side by side to find the smartest mix of both. The 2024 stormwater analysis offered 4 neighborhood case studies of this new approach to planning. Dyker Heights, Knickerbocker.
Hang on, I just lost my place.
Okay. It's page 4 for me, but it might be a different page.
Okay, so last thing it says, now they're working side by side to find the smartest mix of both, right?
Yep.
So it's whatever is right.
Right below stormwater management toolkit on your testimony.
Oh, fine, I got it. All right, sorry.
The 2024 stormwater analysis offered 4 neighborhood case studies of this new approach to planning. Dyker Heights, Knickerbocker, Casino Park, and Jewel Streets. The engineering teams examined which unique set of tools would best serve each of those locations. Each location has a unique challenge and unique solutions, but a few key lessons stand out. When large trunk sewers have unused capacity, upgrading smaller local pipes to connect into that capacity can make a big impact. Green gray infrastructure are most powerful when they work together. Green infrastructure is often faster and cheaper to install, but it can't handle every storm or every location. In some neighborhoods, expanding traditional sewers is still the best option. This analysis is just the beginning of a comprehensive stormwater master plan that will guide the future engineering, budgeting, and investment priorities. We'll continue to keep the council and the public informed as that plan takes shape. We'll issue reports regularly starting in 2027, and we'll launch the Stormwater Analysis Dashboard this coming summer to publicly track the status of various planning initiatives. So far, I've been discussing DEP's new approach to planning, but DEP has also been hard at work in the field, undertaking construction as well. Since 2022, DEP has constructed 170 stormwater management systems, underground tanks, porous pavement, and rain gardens, all on public properties, including schools, parks, and NYCHA developments. We've done 2,890 rain gardens and infiltration basins that we've installed in sidewalks. And we've done 36 green infrastructure practices such as storage systems, porous pavement, rain gardens, and green roofs that we've incentivized on private, non-city-owned properties through grants. In August, we completed construction on the city's first cloudburst project at NYCHA's South Jamaica houses. This fall, we're initiating construction on 2 additional cloudburst projects at Rufus King and Archie Spigner parks. Since 2022, we've also installed over 200 sewer sensors around the city, placed in service so that we can observe levels inside sewers. These sensors tell us where and when capacity is reached, information that we can use to inform our project planning. DEP has been prioritizing projects within our capital plan based on which locations have the biggest challenges and most immediate needs. The 2024 stormwater analysis is a roadmap for these priorities. Already, significant work is underway for 3 of our 4 neighborhoods that were highlighted in the analysis. Specifically, we've got $390 million investment from DEP and DOT in Bushwick in Brooklyn that will address chronic flooding around Knickerbocker Avenue by expanding the sewer under Knickerbocker so that it has 9 times its current capacity. Design is currently underway for work in Dyker Heights in Brooklyn that will upsize key pipes to improve drainage capacity in that area, and a blue belt's being constructed for Casino Park in Queens. DEP is working closely with parks on a potential blue belt and holds regular community meetings to seek feedback and keep local electeds updated. As we've repeatedly said, however, climate is changing faster than our infrastructure can change. The unfortunate reality is that planning, designing, procuring, and constructing these projects usually takes 7 to 10 years. The Knickerbocker Avenue project, for example, will only enter service in 2037. The long timeline to re-engineer our sewer system for our new climate is one reason that stormwater has to be thought of as a shared responsibility. In 2022, DEP implemented the Unified Stormwater Rule, which requires property owners, including city agencies such as Park, DOT, and DDC, to build on-site stormwater management into new construction and renovation projects. The Stormwater Pollution Prevention Plans, these are known as SWIP, have been a concern for some developers as these requirements extend timelines and add costs, but we cannot be serious about addressing stormwater if we're not serious about requiring property owners to help. Similarly, we need New Yorkers to recognize that protecting their lives and property is a shared responsibility. That's why we've been working with communities across the city through our Flooding 101 sessions, which many of you have helped us organize, which helps residents prepare for and recover from storms. These sessions include demonstrations of basic equipment, such as flood alarms, that homeowners can install to protect themselves. While a lot of stormwater planning requires construction, DEP's maintenance crews have also been doing tremendous work to ensure that we get full capacity from the infrastructure we already have. Since 2023, BWSO, Mike's team, has been using data-driven catch basin inspection schedules that prioritize basins where maintenance is most often required. Because of this approach and the new catch basin trucks that we've added to our fleet this year, 98% of more than 87,500 catch basins DEP inspected in fiscal year 25 were functional. BWSO has also cut back their backlog of 5,000 uncleared catch basins to less than 1,000 across the city's 154,000 total. That's a big win for stormwater management, and it's a key reason that despite heavy rain caused by flooding, especially at one subway station during the storm on July 14th, that we got very few reports of basement flooding or sewer backups that day. Most of DEP's work, including our capital work, is funded by water and sewer rates. There is a direct, almost one-to-one correlation between the revenue that we collect and the work that we're able to do. Planned capital work is one of the factors taken into consideration when the Water Board considers rate increases every year. As the commissioners discussed before, we're constantly thinking about how we can use our resources most effectively, because our resources are finite. Making sure that we get the most out of them is one way that we keep water rates down and as affordable as possible. We always consider trade-offs and opportunity costs when we decide to allocate resources to one thing over another. And we ask that the council think about these trade-offs as well when we're considering legislation that would mandate expenses. Each new requirement takes resources away from our other work or requires our rates to be increased, or both. And now I'd like to talk about some of the legislation that's been proposed today. Intro 403. This first bill on the agenda today would require quarterly reporting on the inspection cleanup.
Beth, just hang on one second. I just want to point out to the public advocate that they're talking about your bill now, so. Oh, okay, I just want to, sure.
If you want, I can come back to that one in a second. Okay. Again, Intro 403, this would require quarterly reporting on the inspection, cleanup, maintenance, and repair of catch basins, and would require all catch basins in the city, all 154,000, to be inspected once or twice a year. Again, there are more than 150,000 catch basins around the city. Just for some context, we have about 6,000 employees at DEP, including our upstate employees. For a few years, we were required to inspect them all annually. We found that doing so was not necessary and that was not effective use of our inspectors' time. BWSO used the results of the annual inspections to create a 4-tiered inspection schedule that they're following now. As I had mentioned, the schedule has proven to be very effective. More than 87,500 catch basins were inspected last year, and again, 98% of them were functional. A targeted, efficient, and effective catch basin inspection schedule allows our staff to use its time where it's most needed, such as repairing broken catch basins more quickly or doing other needed system maintenance. It's difficult to compare year-to-year data about catch basins and what are known as SBUs or sewer backups because they're so driven by rainfall. When you compare fiscal 2025 with recent years with similar rainfall like 2016 or 2023, we saw that there were fewer sewer backup complaints, fewer catch basin complaints, and faster resolution times. These are all encouraging indicators about the catch basin inspection schedule and the overall prioritization of our sewer maintenance resources. We're happy to work with the bill's sponsor to codify a catch basin inspection and reporting schedule, but we don't think that the inspection schedule laid out in this bill is the way to go. Intro 1352. This would prohibit downspouts from being connected to a sewer line during construction or renovations for certain properties in combined sewer areas. This is an issue that the commissioner has discussed before. Increasingly, with the intense rainstorms that we're seeing, homes are experiencing sewer backups, not because the sewer is full, but rather because of the rush of water from the roof that creates an internal backup. Further, any water that we can keep out of the sewers both creates capacity that we sorely need and helps us to reduce the combined sewer overflows. So we are grateful for this bill to shine a light on this concern. That said, we've discussed the legislation with Chair Gennaro's staff, and we'd like the opportunity to further assess this initiative. The challenge is that water from a disconnected downspout has to go somewhere. So on a single family lot with a yard, this might not be a problem. In a flood, this might not be a problem. We'd like to work with Chair Gennaro and his staff to consider this question, develop guidelines for property owners, and to consider what should be mandated. We've discussed including this initiative as a component of the Stormwater Master Plan, and the Department of Buildings will also speak about this bill. While downspout connections are legal in the combined sewer areas of the city, they are illegal in those parts of the city that are separately sewered. DEP is beginning to alert homeowners in separately sewered areas of the city that such connections to the sanitary sewer are illegal and must be corrected. We're starting this outreach in Midland Beach and Staten Island because this neighborhood is experiencing an increase in sewer backups due to these connections. DEP has developed a website with directions and guidance on how to disconnect and a portal for homeowners to self-certify the fix when that's been made. Our goal is not to issue citations or fines. We'd much rather ensure that stormwater is kept out of the sanitary system. And we invite the council's partnership to reach out to homeowners about this. Finally, intro 1395. This would require DEP to construct 5 green climate screens across the city in a 2-year pilot project. The technology proposed is a new technology. As far as we know, the only example on Earth of this was in Denmark in 2019. Denmark has not done more than one, basically it's not done more than one of this first installation. And we can only imagine that they haven't done that because they haven't found a second appropriate location. It seems likely that the technology has not proven very valuable or that they would have prioritized more installations. Further, it seems only that one company makes this equipment, so legislating mandating the DEP pilot seems inappropriate. This might be an appropriate use for council member funds if an allocation were identified, but given that we have identified a $30 billion program for stormwater resilience that must be our top priority, this bill's mandates seem like an unwise distraction. DEP is now in its 3rd year of the Environmental Tech Lab. It's a partnership with the Partnership for New York City that helps DEP identify and pilot new technology in a systematic way driven by the agency's needs. We'd be happy to connect the provider of this technology with the program so that it can compete on its own merits, but we've got to oppose the legislation that mandates this pilot of this specific technology as it's written now. And then finally, Intro 1397, the Department of Buildings is here to testify about this, and then after that, my colleagues and I will be happy to answer any questions that you have.
What? Right. Okay, thank you very much for your good and comprehensive testimony. We've been joined by Councilmembers Ressler and Aviles. Grateful to have them with us. And I know that the Department of Buildings is eager to testify. We're certainly eager to hear it. But what I think I want to do is, out of respect for the public advocate's time, you can see how busy he is. I think I just want to jump in now, if it's okay with you, Jumani, to ask questions on your bill. To do that. There may be other members of the committee that have questions on the public advocate's bill as well, but I would ask them to hold back until we get into the regular questioning and start the questioning part of the hearing. But it's not often that we're joined by a citywide official, and I want to give the public advocate an opportunity to ask us questions of DEP on the bill that he's bringing forward. So I recognize the public advocate.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. There's probably some folks who would prefer you keep me here than be outside. So there's probably some folks who probably prefer that anyway. But thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you for the testimony. I did want to just clarify. So there was one spot where you said use the results of the annual inspection to create a 4-tier inspection schedule. So did you get that data after the bill pushed for the annual inspections? Is that how we got the information to create the 4-tier system?
Good afternoon, Council. Good afternoon, Public Advocate, and I appreciate the shout out. My name is Michael Farnan. I'm the Acting Deputy Commissioner of Bureau of Water Supply. Yes, with that initial 3-year from 2016.
Once again, speak right into the microphone so
Sorry
people in the
about that.
back can hear.
Yes, we did get most of the data from that first 3 years. We inspected every single basin. It gave us a lot of insight on, where the difficulties are in catch basins, the complaint history and stuff like that. In 2021, we started with that 4-tiered approach where there's some catch basins we do twice a year. There's some catch basins we do once a year. There's some catch basins we do every 3 years, but we hit them all within a 3-year cycle. We feel that just going to every single one of them, most of the time we don't find any problems with them, and it has to do with the size of the catch basins and stuff like that. They can take on more debris. It's the older catch basins and the ones with the less gradings and stuff like that. They seem to clog up more, so we get to them more frequently. And then where there's more debris, we seem to hit them more frequently because they fill up with debris. Like around the park, there'll be leaves and stuff getting in it. But there's ones where you go like on Fifth Avenue, you'll see the streets are always clean. There's nothing in the catch basins when we go there. So it doesn't make sense to go to those catch basins annually, but we do want to go every 3 years. And I would just want to bring up something, what was said, like the Clearview Expressway. It's not always the catch basin that's failing. The debris that piles up on a catch basin during a storm is one of the major problems that makes it look like the catch basin is failing, but it's actually the debris. Someone, I believe, one of you brought up the Clearview Expressway that day. If you've seen the aftermath of that Clearview Expressway with the intensity of that rain, sanitation had to bring payloaders in to clear the highway. There was so much debris on top of the catch basins couldn't function. So we could have inspected those catch basins that day. That same incident was going to happen. So we're confident in the way we approach, and you're right, it was that first 3 years that gave us a lot of education on it. Now we took it upon ourselves to keep the program going, but I think we're doing it in a more fiscally responsible because we don't have unlimited resources.
No, I appreciate that. And I actually found some of the testimony persuasive for some parts of the bill. I don't want to just do things just to do them. I want them to be effective. But also, congratulations, because we moved from, it looks like we're doing the repairs within 3 days, which is good. Back then, we were going up to almost 8 days.
Well, I think our goal is still 8 days, but we want to exceed that by far. So I think it's 2.6 days we're at right now. Once we find it non-functioning, we don't want it lasting more than 2.6 days.
So there is a couple of parts of the bill, and I think we should have a discussion. I think the annual part of the bill, what you mentioned, is kind of persuasive, but there are other parts that I would like to talk about. The 5-day one is one of those. I'd like to concretize the time period in which you should repair it. Is there a reason why we would not want to concretize a time period to get these repaired? It's actually higher than what you're currently doing.
Oh, 5?
I think we're very
interesting.
I think we're very open to talking about that, and would like to continue discussions to find a way to work on and possibly modify the bill so that it makes sense, and is helping us and doing it at the same time being responsible and fiscally responsible about how do we allocate resources. So,
and there was no testimony on the reporting part of it. So, was there any issues on the reporting part that was a part of the bill?
I believe that the reporting part also is similar to what we had previously reported. So I don't think that there's anything that you know of, Mike.
No, I don't think. Sorry about that. I turned myself off. I believe we do some reporting, and it's on our own. It's not part of a bill, but we do report to the council, and especially in the MMRs, you would see too our data's in the mayor's management reports.
Okay, thank you. Because as we know, with the climate change, the rainfall is probably less predictable, a little bit more intense. So it'd be good to have a concretized framework, I think, of which to work off of. So I look forward to continuing to have more conversation. Thank you. And thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Public Advocate. Thanks for being with us. How about that? We get elected, we get citywide officials to come to our hearings, you know? And so now I believe we have the Department of Buildings that wants to commence with this testimony, right? Okay. Please state your name for the record and proceed.
Good afternoon, Chair Gennaro and members of the Committee on Environmental Protection, Resiliency, and Waterfronts. I am Joseph Ackroyd, Assistant Commissioner for Technical Affairs and Code Development at the Department of Buildings. I'm pleased to testify before the committee regarding Intro 1352, which would add a new requirement for stormwater drainage from roofs, and Intro 1397, which would establish a base flood elevation and resilient construction standard for 10-year rainfall risk areas. Intro 1352 would establish a new requirement for stormwater coming from the roofs of certain buildings to drain toward the street and onto a permeable surface. While we understand the desire to address stormwater drainage, we have significant concerns with the legislation as drafted. The existing regulatory framework requires on-site containment of stormwater when not conveying stormwater to city infrastructure. The proposed bill would effectively allow drainage onto the ground, which means on-site containment would no longer be required. The bill does not take into consideration that stormwater drainage, if not contained, does not follow a set path and will go beyond the property boundaries. Requiring stormwater to drain towards the street could result in drainage towards neighboring properties, potentially causing flooding. This could create unsafe conditions for pedestrians and damage neighboring properties. Rather than limiting the use of on-site stormwater disposal methods, as proposed in the bill, the department suggests expanding the applicability of such methods. Such methods includes the use of a dry well, which is a chamber below the surface of the property specifically designed to contain stormwater runoff. The use of dry wells would ensure that stormwater is contained within the property and is a more effective approach than what is currently proposed. In addition to the concerns regarding potential flooding of neighboring properties, there's some confusion regarding the applicability. We read the legislation as applying to new construction and to alterations to applicable systems. However, it's unclear what residential buildings would be subject to the requirement. The proposed new section 110125 includes a formula for determining applicability and relies upon terms defined in the zoning resolution. Those terms, when used in the context of the subject section, makes the provision unclear and would result in a calculation that could not be applied. As such, it's unclear which buildings would be required to comply. This would need to be clarified. The subject section also provides for exceptions to the new requirements, including one for buildings located in areas of high groundwater level. Groundwater elevation is not information that the department captures on any plan or document unless a subsurface field investigation is required. As such, determining whether a building qualifies for an exemption using this data point could be problematic. Moving on to Intro 1397, which would amend Appendix G of the Building Code to require that new or substantially altered buildings located within the 10-year rainfall flood risk areas be built to the standards that apply to certain federal special flood hazard areas. The department appreciates Council's goal of addressing inland flooding risk. However, we do not believe that the application of Appendix G, which is based on the National Flood Insurance Program requirements, is the most appropriate solution to address such risk, particularly for existing buildings. New York City's built environment poses unique challenges. retrofitting existing buildings to comply with the requirements of Appendix G can be expensive, and in some instances, retrofitting may not be feasible from a constructability standpoint. Furthermore, even with new buildings, the application of Appendix G would impose certain requirements that would be overly restrictive. Additionally, expanding Section G 30411 to apply post-rainfall flood risk area map construction standards to residential buildings would have the effect of prohibiting dry flood proofing, which is the process of making a structure watertight. It could also prohibit ground floor uses for residential buildings. If these provisions are applied, as written, owners of the subject buildings would be prohibited from retaining or constructing subgrade spaces when substantially improved or newly constructed. Instead, residential buildings would be required to elevate the lowest floor, perhaps 3 or 4 feet above grade, which could be viewed as an excessive measure for inland properties that would likely only be faced with 4 inches of standing water from rain. Dry floodproofing and similar methods would enable owners to maintain flexible options for their residential and non-residential buildings while allowing them to continue using ground floor spaces. The City of New York recently applied for a Climate Smart Communities grant administered by the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation to research stormwater flood risk and identify effective stormwater management solutions with the goal of promoting the development and sustainability of structures located within the 10-year rainfall flood risk area. This grant, if awarded, would enable the city to conduct critical research to identify effective stormwater management solutions to address the specific environmental challenges New York City's built environment faces. That research will, in turn, inform the recommendations for necessary regulatory changes to address safety risks and reduce damage from stormwater flooding at the building level. The department urges Council to allow this critical work to take place rather than enacting the proposed amendments to Appendix G of the New York City Building Code. The department welcomes the opportunity to further engage with Council and the Department of Environmental Protection to develop viable stormwater management measures to address New York City's built environment. Thank you for the opportunity to testify before you today. We welcome any questions you may have.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, let me just get myself together here. And okay, sometimes it is my practice to let my colleagues, out of respect for the time, ask questions first, but nobody wants to ask questions, at least right now, but I want to get credit for offering.
Yes.
Okay, I want to give credit for offering. Okay, so credit has been bestowed. Yeah, let me go through the testimony of both agencies, then I have some prepared questions. And looking at DEP now. Beth, I guess I'll address it to you. In DEP's testimony, you made because I always thought that the capacity of the city's sewer system, there were like 4 different measures. Some had 1.75 inches per hour, others at 1.5, others at 1.0, and of course the areas that have no storm system, no storm sewers are 0. In your testimony, you make reference to a 1.85 inch capacity. Is that an existing capacity, or am I just reading this wrong?
I'm going to let Wendy Sperduto talk about the capacity of and the different measurements that we use. I think that, as we said in the testimony, the reason that we've got these different measurements throughout the city is because they used to be essentially dictated by the
I
borough
just thought that
president.
1.75 was like the roof, but I could be wrong. It's the first time I'm hearing about 1.85. It's a curiosity thing. So whoever wants to speak to that, just state your name for the record and proceed.
Thanks, Chair. My name is Wendy Sperduto. I'm the Assistant Commissioner for Engineering and Planning at the Bureau of Water and Sewer Operations. So, yeah, let me just clarify. First, as you know, our system is designed different based on boroughs. Primarily, most of the city is designed to a 1.5 inch per hour standard. But there are areas such as Manhattan and Staten Island that are designed to the 1.75 inch per hour standard. I will say, you know, if you read in different locations, different numbers, it is somewhat subjective what the level is based on the publication. So sometimes you'll read 1.8 inch per hour, sometimes you'll read 2.1, 2.15, 2.2. So we try to be consistent.
And those numbers would be the current capacities.
It depends on the context of the conversation, right? So there's the
Well, I
design
mean, like,
standard is
Capacity
what you,
is what it is. So
design standard is what the sewer is designed for. And we expect it to handle it based on that standard. Current capacity could be affected by, as Mike Farnan, Deputy Commissioner, pointed out, sometimes our sewers get clogged, our catch basins could be clogged, our sewers could have sediment accumulated, so the capacity could be affected by existing condition of those sewers. So it could be.
So it's kind of, well, I was going to say fluid, but then that turns into a pun, you know, and so
Yes,
I
somewhat.
don't want to do that. And so, okay, thank you for that clarification. And in the testimony, you make mention, DEP makes mention that DEP is now has the intention to use the New York City Panel on Climate Change's 5-year storm as expected in 2080 as our design standard. The standard is 2.15 inches per hour. So is that what we're going with? It's my understanding, and this is kind of follow up. This kind of ties into my last question. As DEP, makes its measurements and looks at the hot spots, those areas that flood, more than others. I believe the intent is to, not create one standard citywide, but certainly do kind of like a triage where now that we've taken steps to, measure where we, like I'm out there, right? Now the DEP has, taken these measures to painstakingly figure out like where the worst problems are. It was my understanding that there'd be kind of like a triage method where, those areas that need it the most would kind of get it. And eventually, like over time and decades, we could build out to sort of like a, higher standard, for the entire city. Can someone, am I right? And if so, can someone kind of explain how that works? Not bad for a layman, right? Not bad.
That's pretty good.
Not bad.
I'm impressed.
Yeah.
It does get complicated, so
Well,
it is impressive that you
I am a
can speak the
hydrogeologist.
language.
I am a hydrogeologist, so I'm trying to. I remember some of it,
Okay, so let me first just address the design standard, our current design standard for sewers. So on our current drainage planning, what we do when we address an area for flood protection, our sewers are now designed to take into account the 1.75 inch per hour storm such that the storm would remain in the sewer itself. So the water would be well below ground within the actual sewer. For the 10-year level of protection, as you just referenced with a 2.15 inch per hour, We designed the sewers such that in that storm, the water remains below the ground surface elevation so that you don't see flooding on the street. So that's our current practice. So any of the new projects that you've heard, the Knickerbocker project, the Diker Heights project, other projects, that's what we are designing the level of service to. You are right in that we are advancing our stormwater master planning. And with that stormwater master planning, we are evaluating citywide level of service. As you know, if you're on the top of the hill, even though we're designing a sewer to handle what I just said, it could be that you never flood, even in a 50-year storm, because by nature of the topography, it's in your favor. So that's why we like to say, you know, depending on where you are, even though the sewers are designed as such, you may actually have a higher level of service. But over the next year, we're going to evaluate level of service and make recommendations citywide, which may not be one level of service consistent across the city.
Okay. Ask a complicated question, get a complicated answer, you know? All right, that covered that. DP made mention of the stormwater pollution prevention plans, SWIPs, and about how people can get jammed up in doing those, but we just, you know, passed the bill that's going to become a law that you know, DEP and the building industry and everyone thought was good. So where are we with that? I know we passed it. You know, this mayor really doesn't sign a lot of bills, and X amount of time has to pass before it automatically becomes a law. Where are we with that? I'm asking kind of anybody who knows. Because we passed it, I think, on September 25th or something.
Yeah, I can answer that.
Yeah.
Melissa Enoch, Assistant Commissioner, Environmental Planning and Analysis at DEP. So thank you for the question, and thank you for your support on that really critical.
Yeah, I mean, I was getting beat up about SWIPs. I was getting beat up.
We understand.
And DEP was getting beat up. You couldn't move your own projects.
That's right. That's
right.
right. That's right. And the meeting that you held for us at your office with the Bronx and Staten Island builders was enlightening to kind of hear directly from them as well. So thanks for organizing that. So the legislation was...
well, I got a new office and has a nice conference room. I just wanted to show
lovely.
it off.
I
was just looking for a reason to do that. Yeah.
So the legislation was voted on and passed, I think, on September 25th.
Right.
And it is awaiting mayoral signature. And it's my understanding that on October 25th, which is this Friday, it will
it'll just become law.
It'll just become law. Yes.
Right.
So
this mayor does that a lot. He's not big on bill signings.
Okay.
Which is fine. You know, not for me to tell him how to be mayor. You know.
So we are very excited to announce that officially.
Right.
We've gotten some inquiries from some of the more savvy developers who are aware that that's becoming a reality.
Yeah, because, you know, I'm getting calls too. They want to know one thing. And you know, the way the bill was written is that it takes effect immediately. Now, what I'm wondering is, in order for the bill to take effect, normally a bill gets passed, it becomes law, and then it goes into rulemaking. Now, will this become effective immediately, or is there a rulemaking period of time that has to happen before it can technically be in effect?
Good question. We did our due diligence with the
Do I
city law
only
department.
I only ask good questions. You know?
We did our due diligence with the city law department. It becomes effective immediately, and we can start implementing that relief. We will still need to go through rulemaking because we have rules in place that are contradictory. So we have drafted the rule amendments, but as of Monday, we will be implementing this. And so the whole goal is to get construction permits into the hands of developers more quickly.
Right, because when I say that, the bill is written and to go into effect right away, people are asking me, well, does right away mean right away? And so.
We wondered the same, but
Yeah,
we got
sometimes right away is
clarification.
not right away. Okay. Good. That was a win. Yep. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm formulating my questions. I know that my colleague Lincoln Ressler has questions that he would like to pose. He's someone else like the public advocate that gets around a lot. So I'm going to recognize him for questions while I, get all my stuff in order. So I recognize Councilmember Lincoln, Councilmember Ressler for question. Lincoln's his first name, so it's like, which is the last name, as we know.
Chair, did
But
you
it's
recently
also
get a
first
haircut?
name. What's that?
Get a haircut? You look
I
sharp.
did get quite well. It's my 50th year reunion.
Wow.
I thought that you missed the whole thing.
I
at the
missed
beginning.
the good part of the hearing.
You
huh?
missed the good part where I had my 50th reunion,
Wow.
and I had to wear this.
Your hair looked better then.
Yeah, yes, it did. Thanks for reminding me.
No, the haircut looks good. That was
I
the
know.
word.
It's
That's
just
where
like
it started.
there's this thing like when you're losing your hair, if you get a haircut, it looks better, if not longer. And so that was what I was going for.
Gotta look sharp for the reunion.
Yeah,
That's
and
important.
what's also great is that people will read this on the record, like 100 years from now, talking about my haircut. And so, but
Maybe they'll look up the photo to see how good it looks.
Yes, well, I'm going to have the photo entered into the record somehow.
Good.
Yeah. And so,
With that,
but you are duly recognized.
I'm on the clock. So thank you, Chair, for organizing this
Now
hearing.
you can take the clock off for Lincoln.
No,
It's fine.
I'm not going to take too much time. I really do appreciate your leadership and expertise, and this hearing is so important. And I want to say that I'm grateful for the work of DEP to try and address these issues. As a council member in a waterfront district, like these issues are existential for my constituents. They are deeply, deeply fearful that next big storm is going to ruin their homes, make their neighborhood inhabitable. And, it's why it's been such a priority for me, and I'm grateful for the partnership with DEP. I think I annoy Melissa as much as any member of the city council. That's a nod in case anyone was wondering, for the record. To try to bring as much green infrastructure and resiliency projects to District 33 as we can. If I recall correctly from the budget hearing in the spring, the commissioner, I think, basically said we have like 86 priority kind of resiliency projects. I'm getting a nod. So that was, I was at the hearing. I was listening. And that it would require about $30 billion to fund them. We've got about $10 billion put aside, and we've got a long way to go. And it just gnawed at me after the hearing, and continues to, that we're just so far away from actually allocating the resources and having firm timelines and having a viable plan to make this happen. And even for the projects we do have funded, like Knickerbocker and Bushwick, and I know Councilmember Nerson has already left, but I talk to Councilmember Gutierrez about this all the time, and 2037 is like not just the end, it's the end of our successors' terms, right, in the city council. So whoever takes over for Sandy and Jen, they'll be out of office by the time Knickerbocker is actually in place, assuming everything goes according to plan, which with city capital projects, your guess is as good as mine. So is all to say, is there any update on that 86 project number, on what we have funded? Are we still looking at funding about a third of them? And what can we do to get on track? What's the big picture vision for how we come up with the necessary revenue and come up with a reasonable timeline for how we can fund and execute on these existing priority projects? And I'll just say this and then I'll stop, is, as you note rightly in your testimony, as the commissioner often speaks to, we're planning for the next 50 years. These are the 86 projects we recognize today are critical priorities. Over the next 50 years, I'm sure it's more like 250 projects or some much larger number that we actually need to be solving for. So it was a long preamble, but I really would like some greater clarity on this impossible question, but how are we thinking about it and how are we going to try and do better?
Okay, council member, that is an excellent question and a good follow-up. And I was at the previous hearing and heard your comments that you made at the time about how we're going to, get to all of these areas within a reasonable time frame. And, Melissa and I have been speaking about this and as part of our stormwater master planning efforts and, what will be our approach. So we've thought a lot about your question. Let me first, before I address that, I want to talk about an update on the 86 priority areas. We've gone through pretty much all of the 86 areas to see if we have any current projects that we have in the books that will at least partially address those areas. And we've identified that 36 of the areas currently have investments that are in the works, either in development, design, or construction phase. So I want to say that's really good news. We've also identified over the last year and advanced, I think it's 5 projects for focus neighborhoods, including the Knickerbocker project neighborhood, with almost $1 billion in investments to start addressing additional locations. So that's where we stand right now in terms of how many we have started to address. There are also many that we started initiating drainage planning or drainage analysis, which is the first step to understanding the root cause of the problem so that we can come up with solutions either via a stormwater sewer project or a cloudburst project or green infrastructure and other ways that we can try to bring relief to those neighborhoods. So I'm going to pause with that.
And is it right to say that there's still about a $20 billion gap to fulfill the breadth of what we think is needed for those 86 areas?
There is.
And just at a high level, do you have any broad recommendations of what the next administration could consider for how do we start to tackle that much more ambitiously? And not to say even more ambitiously, let me say, because I think that, as I said, I think there's a lot of good that you all have been doing, and I'm grateful for it. And I feel like there's been a very good partnership with me, and I think many members of this committee and the council on addressing issues in our communities. But we just have such a enormously long way to go. What are the macro recommendations that we should be thinking about for whoever the next mayor is, for how they should be addressing this? The funding gap in particular.
Thank you, Councilman. First of all, we appreciate your partnership. And I know that these projects seem like they take forever.
It's not just seem like.
They do, but if we put it into some context, Knickerbocker has been flooding since the 60s. And I remember going out with the commissioner 3 years ago when I started to look at the problems and the idea that not only have we designed a solution and found funding for Knickerbocker, but that's a pretty quick turnaround time in infrastructure measurement, so to speak. So, I mean, it's not perfect,
You all
certainly.
deserve credit for the planning and funding for the Knickerbocker project. Bushwick needs it desperately. Just the recognition that we're in year 2025 and we're 12 years away from completion. That's all I'm saying. But go ahead.
I think one of the biggest things standing out and one of the largest problems that we're going to have to solve for, and the commissioner has certainly will speak about this more eloquently, and they've put together studies about this, is the way that we fix sewers and infrastructure is your water bill. That's where the money comes from. And so as long as those things are tied, we're required to be a good steward of those water bills. We know how unaffordable the city can be on any given day. And so if you would like us to hit all 86, and spend all utility money or DEP money, great. Are you willing to see your water bill go up by 10, 15, 20 times?
Right. So it's increased the
finding
water
that
bill.
separate, untouchable stream of money that is not connected to people's water bill, I think is probably one of the biggest things that we can do. And you'll hear us talk about that all the time. Every single piece of legislation and thing that we're asked to do, we either have to raise rates, cut other projects, or figure out a way to use those resources. Or just, these are all difficult choices that we're making every day, but I think that those are things that we hope that you'll keep in mind. Certainly want to partner and find a way to get a better funding stream than just water bills.
Yeah, I certainly agree with that. I think we do need to go above and beyond the water bill. I also think we need to look at some of the other priorities the DEP has on the infrastructure side and see how do we make sure that flood mitigation and resiliency is incorporated or, frankly, at the top of the list, because I just think it's the most existential threat that we face. Climate change is the most existential threat that we face as a city, and we need to be doing more and be working faster to have projects at scale across these just 86 priority areas for today, let alone all of the other areas that will need to be addressed in the years to come. So with that, can I have one last question? Is that okay, Chair?
Sure. Yeah,
I really appreciate it.
I'm a soft touch when it comes to you. Yeah.
You, indeed. We have been getting some incoming about the DEP Stormwater Pollution Prevention Plan review timelines.
Yeah, the SWIP.
The SWIP.
Yeah, we did a law on that.
Totally.
Yeah.
The critique, though, is that we've heard the DEP is unfortunately perhaps under-resourced and taking a healthy amount of time on the review, and that it's leading to meaningful delay on projects. We've been getting reports from other agency partners of up to 10 months. I don't know if that's accurate. This is just the reports we've been getting. Are there things that we could do to help DEP to speed up that SWIP review? And to
We did the law. It's going to go into effect in a couple days.
That's the law you were just asking about. Perfect.
Right,
So
yeah.
you're feeling good that we're gonna.
Yeah, I mean, we got the building community together, and and they're as happy as they could be. Like we've got to do the SWIP. Like I indicated, DEP was they were for because they were having problems moving their own project. They were having problems moving their own project. So all the members are getting like killed with like SWIP stuff, and so
Good.
That's why we did that.
Great.
So
Anything you want, Melissa? Anything to add?
Yeah, I think I should. So, one thing I want to say is that SWIPs are one component of our Unified Stormwater Rule, and the Unified Stormwater Rule is essential to our stormwater resilience strategy because it requires on-site stormwater management during development when it's cheaper than the city going out and doing retrofits. And that additional stormwater management takes pressure off of our sewer system. So it goes hand in hand with increasing the city's stormwater resiliency for future, flooding. So that being said, we have a lot of process improvements in the works for the SWIP program, one of which has been moving the maintenance easement, which the legislation helped us do. We have many other things in the pipeline too. We have a rebuild of our database. Similar to DOB, we have a very robust permitting data system, and it, wasn't quite up to par when the Unified Stormwater Rule was passed. And so we've been rolling out fixes for that database for the last few months, and we're starting to see some good feedback from industry there. And we're also going to be working on some additional rule changes, so separate from the legislation, but having that legislation changed enables us to move forward with some additional rule changes where you should start feeling some relief, and agencies would too.
And then I think it comes back to us in a couple of other ways, Lincoln, about you're making sure that water and sewer money that people pay in actually goes to water and sewer. Mayor Adams, his first 2 years, he didn't take a rental payment. And then he took a huge rental payment of $440 million. And then, he indicated that he wants like the maximum rental payment as far as the eye can see. There's no rationale for the rental payment. It just diverts water and sewer monies, payments into the general fund. And that's hundreds of millions of dollars a year. And unlike when previous mayors used to take a rental payment, once the rental payment if it takes a $350 million rental payment, then it becomes baselined. It's like not even like,
Right.
What is that about?
And there will be a new director of OMB in about 70 days.
Well, and also, Josh, do we have a bill on this? You can't answer because you're not on the record. But what we're doing is we're going to, we want the rental payment to just plain old go away. And so, I'm talking to the chairs of the corporations, committees in the Assembly and the Senate to kind of like just make the rental payment go away so that, because its original rationale, which is to pay off the pre-1985 water and sewer, general obligation debt, all that debt's been retired. And so now they put kind of a Trojan horse in there, and that's what we're dealing with now. It's like, it's a mockery of a travesty, of a sham. And there is a bill that would give the city council the ability to kind of have a say in what the rental payment is, to make us like co-conspirators and like ripping off the water and sewer ratepayers. We don't want to be that. And so we just want the rental payment to go away. So I'm in conversations now with the chairs of the relevant committee. This should be a layup for them because they get to go to their constituent. And both of the corporation committee chairs have districts in New York City. So this should be like, okay, sure, we're gonna like, we're gonna lower people's water bills. We're gonna take away the mayor's ability to kind of fleece people. And so, that's going to be big as well because that's like a lot of money because, we're looking at rental payments that could jack, rates 10%, like just for the rental payment, which is not good. So I how do I get off my soapbox now that I've got
Thank you very much for the chance to go at length, Chair, and I really look forward to working with the DP team to get the McCarran Asphalt project completed by 2029. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Ressler, because he's great to have on the committee because in case I'm like a tough guy or whatever it is, and it's like, okay, if you don't give me what I want, you're going to have to face Lincoln. You know what I mean? And so it's like, nobody wants to do that. And so I always have a little picture of Lincoln. I just wave at people and stuff like that. And I just say, you don't want me to call him up. You don't want that to happen. And so, yeah. He's a great American, Lincoln, absolutely. Okay, now I'm gonna do some questions. Okay, the New York City Panel on Climate Change, MPCC. Oh, by the way, now I'm really I'm taking a bow here. So, who created the MPCC in law? Ta-da! So, I was telling people that at my reunion, they didn't seem to care, The MPCC published its fourth assessment last June. This kind of goes over your testimony. Has DEP reviewed that assessment? If so, has DEP identified key findings specifically related to storm and rainfall projections that will inform the city's long-term stormwater planning? That is my question. Dun, dun, dun. Melissa, I guess you're up.
Yes, we have. And through our partners at MOCEJ, we've coordinated very closely with NPCC. Some of the new information that's come out has already started informing our new sewer design, but also we have new stormwater flood mapping that's required of legislation passed last year to determine the city's 10-year special flood risk area.
Right, inland, yeah.
Exactly. And so we're using that data, the new sea level rise estimates, and the precipitation levels to run a pilot scenario to see how those might change the current 10-year forward-looking flood hazard area that we have identified. So it's been very informative, as usual. And we coordinate really closely with them in MOCJ. Paul, I don't know if you want to add anything.
Sure, just state your name for the record.
Paul Zito, Deputy Executive Director, the Mayor's Office of Climate and Environmental Justice. No, I don't have anything significant to add. I'll say that DEP's been wonderful partners with the MPCC. It's not just even about the report publication, but we are, say, in MPCC 5, and we are partnering very closely with DEP to inform how we approach our research and make sure that the outcomes are reflective of the practical realities that DEP sees every day and that they'll find the information useful.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. This is an MOCEJ question. Get ready. Get ready. MOC recently launched Resilient Acquisitions, a voluntary home acquisition program for New Yorkers interested in selling their high flood risk homes. The program will be piloted in the Jewel Streets neighborhood. Can you share a bit more about what the rollout of that program will look like?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your
Yeah, and also
question.
just speak loudly and slowly so people can hear you. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm a fast talker. I will try to slow down. As you correctly stated, we are piloting the program in the Jewel Streets on the border of Brooklyn and Queens. The Jewel Streets was identified as a priority area in DEP's 2024 Stormwater Analysis Report. Again, we work closely with DEP, HPD, and other agency partners with where we might target an acquisition program. We are very cognizant to be very targeted about any area where we would consider home acquisitions. We are in the midst of a housing crisis in New York City, so taking any number of units, taking any number of units offline very seriously. And we also want to make sure that any acquisitions program, again, this is resilient acquisitions, complements DEP or other agency flood resilience strategies across the city. So if we're taking a home offline, perhaps there's an opportunity to utilize that space where that home occupied for a stormwater or flood protection use that maybe protects the rest of a community. And so for the pilot in the Jewel Streets, what we are doing is we're working closely with DEP and with HPD. HPD, as we know, is conducting a comprehensive study of where additional housing could be located within the Jewel Streets. DEP is doing its stormwater improvements in the Jewel Streets, and where we are focusing any acquisition would be in areas where ultimately, once all of the comprehensive improvements have been effectuated, there still maybe some targeted, unique circumstances where we should acquire a home. What we are doing in partnership with DEP and HPD is we've launched an expression of interest form. This program is voluntary, so we're asking people to effectively raise their hands, and in a way that's not contracting or obligating them to anything, just to have the conversation. What flooding are you seeing in your basement? Or in your home, or is your home experiencing? Have that conversation with them, figure out their circumstance, figure out where those homes are located, and then talking with HPD and DEP about what information we're getting, and that's ultimately going to inform how we approach more comprehensive conversations with the community about where housing would be located, where infrastructure is located, what homes might be appropriate for a buyout, because we'd want to work with our agency partners to confirm what the appropriate end use is.
Thank you. Before I ask my next question, I am 45 minutes overdue for a drop. Sorry, this is like, hey, it's all cataract surgery thing. It's like a lot of drops. Then I have to do the IDAB. I want to point out that this handkerchief is only for IDABing, not for, I have another handkerchief for the other thing. You can't use the same handkerchief for both, just in case anyone was worried, you get what I'm saying, More for MOCEJ. Has MOCEJ secured or identified funding for the Resilient Acquisitions Program? If not, what is the expected timeline for securing funding?
Thank you for your question. So for resilient acquisitions, it's intended to be flexible. So the first thing we look to do with this program is work to identify what a priority area might be. Then we identify what homeowners would want to participate, what the ultimate end use of those lands would be.
Talking about money though, right?
But once we identify who wants to participate and what the use would be, that helps us identify how much money we'll need for an acquisition in a certain area. And so in some instances, once we identify who might want to raise their hand, it might be 5 homes or it might be 10 homes, and that'll inform what our budgetary ask would be. In the Jewel Streets,
So this would be part of the city's budget process, right?
this would be the way we are looking at it, and to be maximally flexible is, once we identify willing homeowners and an appropriate end use,
Right.
there might be a federal grant. The state has its Environmental Bond Act money. We might pursue that. It also might be a city capital budget ask
Yeah,
as well.
I think it's going to be city capital funds because we never get any money from the Bond Act. We just don't. And the federal government is they don't want to talk to us. So I think this is going to, what do I know? I started out my career in 1983 with OMB in the Capital Division, but I don't know. Have you put any feelers for Bond Act money? Is anyone talking to you?
We've had conversations with HCR. We are talking with them about some of our priority areas in 2 weeks. And ultimately, the program's intended to be flexible into the future. So we want to be realistic about what's happening in 25, but we want this program to be around and available whenever necessary in 35, 45, and beyond, because we know the flood risk from the MPCC. For the Jewel Streets, we've worked with the Office of Management and Budget, who's confirmed that monies will be available for a home acquisition program. They're currently we've confirmed that. We've confirmed that to the community. We're figuring out what the appropriate funding source is. There are some federal community development block grant for disaster recovery monies that might be appropriatable.
You better grab it. All right. Thank you. Okay. The next one you've already answered, and I haven't even asked it yet, so I'm not going to ask it. And so. Okay, let's talk about some of the bills. We have 1352 in relation to the drainage location of certain building roofs. This bill aims to reduce stormwater flooding by reducing the burden on the sewer system, but of course it only works if there is sufficient permeable surface to absorb the stormwater. This bill tries to address this by limiting its scope to residents with at least a 1-to-5 front yard to roof area ratio. So the land area has to be 5 times bigger than the roof. Okay, does DEP already track the size of yards or permeable surfaces on private properties? If so, how? If not, what would be the barriers to tracking that information? So a couple of questions all at once. I want to move it along. So that's my question. Okay, I'm going to go to Melissa, my go-to. Yeah.
So the question about tracking permeable surfaces across the city, back in 2019, we published actually it was a little bit earlier than that, I think 2017, we published a citywide parcel-based impervious cover data set, which leveraged other
Impervious.
Right. And so the idea then is somebody can download the data, and it's available on New York City Open Data. And when you couple that with other sort of city planning, lot level information, you can an individual could identify what parts of their parcel are impervious. So it would give you the available impervious area or pervious area. Sorry.
Pervious, right.
One difficult challenge there is pervious versus impervious doesn't necessarily equate to having a surface having infiltration capabilities.
Right.
So that's one challenge of saying.
I will just use my front lawn as an example. So the house, got the garden in the front, then a little bit of lawn, and then it really slopes. And so I don't know what that's going to pick up.
Exactly.
It's just going to run off,
Exactly. Yeah.
So it's not only surface area, it's the characteristic.
Right. The ability for stormwater to absorb into that permeable area.
Right.
And that's not data that's available citywide at the parcel level.
Right. Okay. Thank you for that. Okay. Next question about that bill. The bill provides exceptions for properties for which DEP or DEP for which DEP or DOB determines compliance would threaten health, safety, or property. For example, for buildings in areas with high groundwater tables, what kind of staffing would be required for DEP or DOB to make such determinations on a lot-by-lot basis? Government's complicated. What are you gonna do? You know?
Well, speaking for DEP, we haven't done a staff analysis of this bill yet. As we mentioned in our testimony, we have a really great pilot that we're launching now for disconnection for an area where we have stormwater discharging to a sanitary sewer, which is really problematic, right? Because sanitary sewers don't have capacity at all for stormwater. So we want to start with that pilot and kind of understand what that engagement with the property owners and the analysis of the lots and the availability for safe discharge of stormwater onto lawns really is. And so without that information, I'm not sure we could really come up with a thoughtful staff analysis.
Chair, are you interested in hearing from DOB on that particular question?
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I was on my way in. I'm like, hey, I get to talk to DOB today. Good day,
Doesn't
And
get
so,
better. It doesn't get better.
Yeah, that's just like, it's a beautiful thing. Yeah.
So I kind of concur with Melissa on the difficulty of telling you exactly what the resources might be. I think that the way the exception is drafted, there is probably a need for additional guidance on what constitutes, a threat to health, life safety, or whatever. So whether this is a case-by-case approval will drive the resource need.
Yep.
So I think it's going to take a bit more digging and confirmation of what the final product looks like before we can.
Right. And everybody was clear in their testimony that I think we get credit for putting a lot of, clay on the wheel here, but we have to make it into a pot that's pretty, and so this is why we have hearings. And I appreciate that. I appreciate your, candid, candid testimony. Did you have any more on that? Or you?
I think no.
Okay. Good. Oh, right. Okay. We're doing you all favors here. We're just trying to cut down on questions that, kind of overlap with stuff that's already been said. Okay. Intro 1397, the one you guys hated. Okay. What's that? It's a little hyperbole. It's like done for effect. 1397. All right. Whoa. Okay. This bill, 1397, requires DEP to include a base flood elevation for the 10-year flood risk area map and use that base flood area elevation to apply the ASCE 24. Do you say ASCE or do you just try to pronounce it? Is it, you just say ASCE? Is that? Okay, fine. I just want to say it right. To apply the ASCE, let me start over. This bill requires DEP to include a base flood elevation on the 10-year flood risk map and use that base flood elevation to study the ASCE 24 flood resistant design and construction standards to new construction and substantial improvement in those areas. Is this the correct, I mean, the testimony gets this, but is this the correct standard to use for areas vulnerable to stormwater flooding? Oh, and if not, are there other construction and design standards that would better apply to construction in the 10-year flood risk area? I mean, you talked a little bit in your testimony about, you know, why this isn't a good idea, why certain things would cause this, that, and the other thing, but this is kind of flipping it over, saying like, you know, that would better apply to construction in the 10-year flood risk area. So like we made our pitch, you know, so if we were going to do it better, like how would we do it?
So
You got to get it right up close again, yeah.
I think the answer is it is a good standard. It is the best standard that we have for riverine and coastal flooding. However, it has limitations flooding, and we are in the process of attempting to get a grant from New York State DEC.
Oh yeah, right. I remember that from your
Yep.
from your testimony. It's like, you know, DEC giving out money, you know, and so I used to be deputy commissioner at you know, at one of the deputy commissioners at state DEC, and we love saying no to New York City, you know. I was kind of a I was kind of a boat rock red like DEC, which is why I got fired. So, which is, yeah, you
Okay,
know,
we're
they had like a
hopeful.
little too much Gennaro. You know what I mean? It was just
Yeah.
like, no, this is where good environmental ideas come to die. You know, and I didn't see it that way, and so they just got sick of me, and yeah.
We should hear in the next month or two if we get the grant. So we'll have a better.
Anyway, but you were in the middle of
Yeah, no,
talking when I got silly, so go ahead.
It's,
Yeah.
it's fine.
Yeah.
So the whether it's DEC funding or not, we do feel as though the standard needs to be studied and modified for urban flooding. That it's not appropriate, that it's based on a federal framework that is insurance driven, and it puts significant limitations on residential buildings, as I highlighted in testimony.
Right.
And so since we have an opportunity, we're not bound by these federal requirements, why not be more thoughtful and try to allow for retrofits without limiting uses the way that ASCE 24 does?
Right. So here's another question. You folks want to do this. That's great. No one's telling you to do it. It's just a good thing. It's just the right thing to do. We have a new administration coming in. They may not see it that way or whatever. I'm wondering if this is an opportunity for the council to put in a bill that would mandate that you do this. What do you think about that? I mean, you know, it would be like what you want, so it'd be like what you do it now, but we just put it in the bill, and then the new administration comes in, we pass the bill, and then that's that. So you get to do it.
I think that's a better approach than the way 1397 is currently drafted, certainly giving us the flexibility to come to a solution which I think is more suitable for New York City.
Oh, so do that in lieu of this one.
I thought that was what you were offering.
No, I'm just saying.
Oh, a code. Can you elaborate on what your bill
No,
might
'cause
look like?
You just talked about how you're, how you want to do this study, that you want to get funded by the DEC. And this is going to lead to great happiness if we do this study, because good things will come from it. And I think that is a little, and so we've got 1397, which does what it does, but I see how you say, I'm thinking like we could do some version of 1397, but so 1397 is never really going to happen unless you do this study, because the study is needed.
I think
right?
our preference would be that we do the study and then coordinate with you what a 1397 might look like to incorporate the findings of our consultant services and our collective brain trust here on
Right.
what is the right approach.
Okay, I'm going to ask committee council to, both committee councils to kind of like think about what we were just talking about, and maybe, because this thing is not getting passed this year anyway, right? Is it? Oh, okay. How long is the study, you think would take if it were to commence? I mean, I'm like already 50 years out of high school. You know what I mean? I need, like, I'm to like the results part of my life. I have to like start wrapping it up.
Well, I guess the good news is if it's funded from the state, then maybe the procurement process might be a little quicker, and I would imagine we'd probably be able to get a consultant once the money's awarded within 18 months or so. And then typically these types of consultant services take probably 24 months before they provide us with final recommendations.
But let's just say no money, appears for this. But if it were in a bill that this was something that like had to be done, then the city would have to find the money in order to comply with the law, right? So
theory, I've experienced requirements for studies that have gone unfunded.
I mean, I get that, but it's just like if we, I'm going to be around. I don't have an opponent. I'm probably still going to be here. I'll probably win in November. I just have to. I don't think anybody's going to launch like a writing campaign against me. I haven't heard anything about it, but so I'm going to be around. Hopefully, I'll be chair of this committee, and so I'll just to move this along. I'll just ask our co-counsels to kind of think about everything that just transpired in the last couple of minutes to figure out how we might amend 13. Let me see. I keep on having to look up the number of the bill. Yeah, 1397. See, 50 years out of high school, so it's like numbers, little thing. It's just whatever. Just at least when I do laundry, I can pair the socks. I can still do that. You know what I mean? It's more of a visual exercise. With the pairing of the socks. Oh, so we're good then, right? Okay. All right. Well, this is, really appreciate the collaboration that we have, both from our DEP. I was going to say DEC, DEP and DOB on these complicated matters, and really appreciate your candid testimony and willingness, to engage collaboratively, going forward. So I've asked all the questions that we have for you. The only thing left to determine, which I'll leave to my co-counsels, like who won? Who won? They said we won, and so just but good effort though. Good effort though. We do appreciate that, but better luck next time. And so, thanks very much for coming. We'll work, but try to have a little fun like while we're doing it. Arrest me. What are you going to do? So, thank you very much. And what we're going to do is we're going to. I'm going to have to take just a brief recess while they are going to get the panels set up for the people, and so why don't we do that while I just take a break for a second, and yeah. Close.